Hi there. I just want to share with you a little short slice of my memoir called Fighting the Shadows. It's included in this award-winning anthology, Voices from the Pandemic, edited by Don Helin and published by Headline Inc. Books. I wrote this memoir at the beginning of the pandemic, so that would be March 2020. When the pandemic first started to affect the lives of the people in my area. I know it had affected the world before it had gotten to my area. And what I wrote for this piece came out of a combination of reading other people's work, out of journaling, out of meditation. It came out of working with a writing coach, Suzanne Steele, in the Writer Spirit Project. It came out of self-discovery. I was trying to name this odd feeling that I had as I was watching the news in March 2020. I felt this deep sense of loss, even though at that time I personally knew no one who had been affected by COVID-19. But I had this overwhelming feeling of grief, even though I personally did not know anyone who had died from the virus or from complications of the virus. So I began journaling about it, and a memory rose to the top. A memory from when I was about 3.5 years old. It was summertime. And I'll read you just a little bit of my memoir to have you get a feeling of what was happening in this memory and why I felt this memory was important to what was happening now. So let me read that this was when I was 3 years old, so it would have been summer 1976. The kittens ran up the porch steps. I opened my arms for them, and I counted them. Only 5? To keep track, I touched their heads. Star, Pooh, Lily, Aggie, Felix. But where's Oscar? I stood up and brushed the gray paint chips off my legs. I saw him as soon as I looked through the porch railing. He was asleep on his side in the rocks beside the steps, tail straight, tongue sticking out. I wasn't allowed off the porch unless a grown-up was outside with me, but I wanted to wake him up. So I went into the kitchen and I filled up a Tupperware dish full of water. I took the dish to the porch railing, lifted my hand over the top, and poured water onto Oscar. His orange fur smooshed flat from the wetness, but he was still sleeping. I went back to the kitchen, filled up again, and let the water trickle onto his head. His tongue moved, so I gave him more drinks. But Oscar was still asleep when the sun started feeling too hot on my skin, too bright in my eyes. So the feeling I was trying to capture there was the uncertainty at 3.5 years old of not understanding what had happened to my kitten Oscar, was so similar to the feeling of not understanding what was happening in March 2020. And ultimately, my story brings out the fact as humans, we often fear the unknown. We often fear death itself. And that's something we share. And I take comfort in sharing that. But writing about it, sharing that with others, journaling about it, truly releases that fear. And it does not change the horrible circumstances that are happening, but just acknowledging that that's where this feeling is coming from helps me personally to deal with it, hopefully in a more healthy way for myself, for my family, and hopefully by sharing it, I've been able to touch someone else's heart and let them know that they're not alone, that we are feeling this deep grief, this deep fear together. And that's how we'll overcome it, by doing this all together. So I really appreciate you watching my video. Thank you for all who've supported me in this crazy dream of mine to become a published author. Thank you to Headline Books for publishing this beautiful anthology. It is an award-winning book, and I am amazed at the wonderful job that editor Don Helin has done. Thank you, everyone. Take care, and I hope that everyone that you love and care about are staying safe and healthy. Thank you so much.